The new M3 iPad Air or the M4 iPad Pro. What are the differences and which one should you buy? I'll actually answer that last question right now, but just know that it's not entirely black and white, so every situation is going to be different, and I hope you stick around and see all of the major differences between these two iPads because some of these features might matter more to you than some of the other people out there that are looking to buy one of these two iPads. Now, personally, I think for most people out there, myself included, it just makes more financial sense to save roughly $400 and get the new M3 iPad Air. So that's the one that I would personally recommend to everyone out there, but which one do I like more? Well, it's really hard to go against the M4 iPad Pro strictly because of this display. So let's start there. The display on the iPad Air is very good, and I think it's going to be just fine for those who don't really want to spend an extra $400 on the OLED iPad Pro, but man, that display is just so good. Apple's Ultra Retina XDR display, it's an OLED panel with ProMotion technology, so basically you get support for 120 frames per second, and it gives you that smooth scrolling effect when you're, browsing the web or just navigating throughout the OS. It's just a really nice OLED display with really deep blacks that give you excellent contrast, and just about everything looks vibrant, sharp, crisp, and bright. And while again, there's nothing bad about the iPad Air's display, again, it's just not this. You'll also get Face ID, which was moved to the landscape orientation and is used to authenticate and unlock your iPad. And it's a bit more convenient than the fingerprint sensor on the iPad Air, which is integrated into the power button. So if you're using it like I do, mostly these larger iPads I'm using on a keyboard, it's kind of annoying to have to go up and touch, but it's not that bad. You'll get through it, but Face ID is just a little bit more convenient. So as you can guess here, both of the iPads that I have are the 13-inch size, but you can also get each one in a smaller 11-inch size if you like something a little bit more portable and something that's just a lot easier to carry around. But these iPads are really thin even at these larger sizes. The 13-inch iPad Pro is actually the thinnest Apple product to date. Also worth pointing out, both iPad Air and iPad Pro do have a 12-megapixel camera with center stage support. Now on the back, you also have another 12-megapixel wide camera. They're the same on each device for the most part. No huge differences here, except the iPad Pro can take 4K video in ProRes format, and the other one just takes regular 4K video, which I'm not sure how many of you are using that, but perhaps you run a multicam setup in Final Cut Pro. Well, you can shoot in ProRes if you want to. And lastly, as far as the design goes, the big difference here around the frame is that there are two landscape speakers and two microphones for the iPad Air, and the iPad Pro has 4 speakers and 4 studio quality microphones, and both speakers and mics are quite good on the Pro, and even really the sound that you get on the Air is okay, but on the Pro, it sounds more than enough. I rarely even use headphones with it because it's so good. Lastly, at the bottom, there is a USB-C port on both. However, the iPad Air is just a USB-C port. The iPad Pro is actually a Thunderbolt 4 port, so you have access to faster data transfer speeds and some of the Thunderbolt hubs and accessories out there. So when it comes to what's underneath the hood for both iPads, really just in terms of performance, both iPads are going to be just fine. Technically, the iPad Pro is more powerful. It's supporting an M4 chip and a couple more cores in CPU and GPU over the M3 chip that's found in the iPad Air. But I have noticed absolutely no difference in terms of performance for my use cases. Not saying that you won't, but for me, whatever I use these iPads for, which is mostly just kind of basic iPad stuff, but also pushing the limits with Final Cut Pro and messing around in Logic and creating some music. But then, mostly again doing iPad stuff like admin work, writing documents, scripts, browsing, and of course, content consumption. And both iPads have just been an absolute pleasure, and I've never noticed anything different in terms of performance. Now, because I haven't really noticed that big of a difference or really any difference in performance, I think that's what makes it tough to recommend the Pro when the biggest difference for me is really just the display. I know there are other things out there, and we'll talk about a few more after this, but I'm just curious to know so far, what would be the biggest driving factor towards going from one iPad over the other? Let me know down in those comments below. Now, quick note, both iPads support Apple Intelligence, and again, they are both handling those AI tasks at about the same performance level as the other, but I just wanted to let you know that yes, you do get Apple Intelligence if you're a huge fan of those features that are available right now. The last thing worth mentioning here is going to be involving the accessories, and that, is kind of the next biggest thing aside from the hardware of the iPad, because I use one of the accessories exclusively almost all the time on both iPads. But we'll start with the Apple Pencil. Both support the Apple Pencil Pro and the Apple Pencil with USB-C. And so it's just going to depend on which one you want and need, but you both get access to the same type of Apple Pencil. The Pro has excellent features for content creators, designers, etc. Makes it a little bit easier to get some drawing content work done on the Apple Pencil Pro, but the USB-C pencil is mostly good for some drawing and content creation, graphic design work, but mostly note-taking as well. The biggest thing here is that they both have different Magic Keyboards, and this was a bigger deal with the M2 iPad Air because that was using an older style Magic Keyboard, but with the M3, this was just updated to feature a design that's fairly similar to the iPad Pro version, and perhaps in the most important ways, because now it comes with that function row that we got on the M4 iPad Pro keyboard, and a larger trackpad, which we also have on that. So the only difference between this and the iPad Pro version really is that it's just made with more premium materials like aluminum around the keyboard, and I don't know, it just has that more premium look and feel, but does that really matter? Probably not. I mean, we got the biggest tweaks on the iPad Air version that came with the M4 iPad Pro keyboard, so I think everybody kind of wins here. One last thing to note is that the iPad Pro does offer a Nano-Texture option, which, if you don't know by now, I am a huge fan of the Nano-Texture display on the iPad Pro. I have it here on my 11-inch model, and it just does an amazing job at dodging those pesky reflections from overhead lights and large windows, which is something I have a ton of in this studio space. So it is an extra $100 charge on top of the fact that you have to get either the 1 or 2 terabyte models. So you really need to be sure that A, you want to use a Pro and use a Pro quite frequently to spend that much money, and B, you want the Nano-Texture glass because it's going to cost you quite a bit to get up to that compatible model, and then the extra $100 charge on top of that. Also, the Air only goes from 128 gigs to 1 terabyte in storage, while the iPad Pro goes from 256 to 2 terabytes. The Air also offers you 4 different colors to choose from, so if color is a huge thing, then you can get space gray, blue, purple, or starlight. I have the blue one here if you can't tell. And the iPad Pro, it just has space black and silver. And that's about it. Those are most of the major differences and features, or even some of the bigger similarities that you might need to know, some of the more important driving factors when making a decision between these two iPads. But like I said at the beginning, if you don't know why you need an iPad Pro, or if you don't already have a specific reason why you think you need an iPad Pro, you just don't need an iPad Pro. Go with the iPad Air. Unless you're a display snob like me, which is totally valid, no one's judging you, you'll absolutely love the display on the iPad Pro over the Air. But that's really the biggest difference in my opinion. I know there are some other things that other people might like, but for me it's just the display, and I don't know that it's worth recommending it for an extra $400 or so. So just go with the Air. Either way, whichever one you get, you'll be plenty happy with either one of these iPads. But if you're spending a lot more money on it, be sure that you want to use the iPad more than just, when you're lounging around in the house and want to watch some content, because it's a lot of money and you're going to want to use it daily. But let me know in the comments down below what you think, which one you either have already or which one you're planning to get. Let me know down in those comments. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.